Hello, welcome to PCMag Live. I'm Dan Costa, he is Sascha Segan, and we've got a great show for you today. We're going to break down the top tech news of the day, answer one of your reader questions, and show you one cool thing that we just tested in our labs in New York City. Let's start with the big news that broke over the weekend. Google has bought Dropcam for $555 million in cash because they have it laying around. Dropcam is the manufacturer of home and office cameras, home security cameras, and the cloud service that helps you manage those cameras.
Now, look, I can make any cam a drop cam. Look, I dropped it.
That is not officially a drop cam.
It's not actually a drop cam.
It is a dropped camera, not the same thing.
Yes, but this is part of Google assembling this Internet of Things strategy, of which Nest is also part of. Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting watching Google keep on trying to stab at hardware. They've been this software and services company for so long, and their attempts at hardware have always been so incomplete, not entirely successful.
I mean, I appreciate that they're not trying to develop it themselves. They're basically taking the industry leader in a given segment that they think has promise, and they just buy it. They buy the engineers, they buy the vision. What they haven't shown is that they can stitch all this stuff back together again. You know, how is the Nest going to work with the Dropcam?
At least Dropcam goes well with YouTube, which makes sense in Google's content landscape. Dropcam has this huge content network of its own, and its users are constantly uploading massive amounts of video to it. And you can see Google is very soon probably going to merge that Dropcam video network with YouTube, massively boost YouTube's viewership, and then of course that makes Google more money through YouTube advertising.
Yeah, I got to think, what would happen with Dropcam if you think about all that Dropcam video, all those signals, if you use it to layer over Google Maps, if you use it to layer over Google Street View, and you've all of a sudden got all these other angles, all this other video, you want to opt in, there's privacy issues, but it just creates a whole new data stream. It could be real-time mapping. Yep. Which is pretty extraordinary. The one other thing I want to talk to, the Dropcam Tab, which is a little sensor that they're selling that's going to be available this summer for 29 bucks. You can put it on your door, you can put it on your laptop, and it'll send you a text message whenever it moves. So you can tell that a door is open. It's like a great passive sensor system.
We saw a couple of companies doing this at CES, and I think the Mother was one of them. There was another company I saw doing them. What was interesting was they were being targeted to people wanting to keep track of elderly relatives. You would put one like on the fridge or on the medicine cabinet to make sure that your elderly relative is, opening her medicine cabinet every day.
Yeah, it's all sorts of interesting. You can see Google starting to stitch it together. We'll hear more about it at I/O this week. Check out PCMag.com for more on that. Also in the news, Heartbleed is not dead yet. That's right, 2 months after Heartbleed has been revealed, it turns out only half of all the infected systems, I shouldn't say infected, of all the affected systems have been repaired, and so 300,000 servers out there are still not patched.
Heartbleed is never going to die because there are people out there who still use IE6. And it is not because IE6 is directly tied to Heartbleed. It's because there's a certain percentage of people who are just not going to upgrade their software.
And businesses, too, that are not going to go in, because if you look at the take rates, they're actually, the rate of patches is declining. So these systems are probably never going to be patched. Right. Most big operations, big companies have patched their systems, but there's still a vast number of smaller companies out there that are just never going to deploy a fix. So be careful where you go, and be careful what browser you use. Finally today, Google Glass frames are finally going to be available, designed by Diane Von Furstenberg. They're available for sale in the US, $1,800 on Net-a-Porter, which is cheaper than buying them separately. They do look a little bit better than the stock glasses that come with Android.
So you'd call it Net-a-Porter and not Net-a-Porte?
I would call it Net-a-Porter.
Okay, interesting. Because I would call it ridiculous and stupid, and just reminds me of the Diane Von Furstenberg Samsung flip phones from 2003, which were also a bad idea.
So, but they come with little fashion tips to help you wear them, so a lot of people don't know how, necessarily how to mix and match Google Glass.
Well, of course, the #1 fashion tip is don't wear Google Glass.
Well, actually,
because the problem with Google Glass is not the frame design. It's that Google Glass has now been culturally typed so that if you have one of these things in front of your face, you're an asshole. And that is something that, some cool frames or little flowered designs isn't going to get around. You now need to change that entire social dynamic.
But Sascha, what if, for example, you had a work outfit, as Net-a-Porter suggests, and you paired them with an $850 Oscar de la Renta cropped houndstooth pants, and maybe a $660 Giavito Rossi patent leather pumps. I mean, would that work for you?
You'd be a wealthy asshole.
Okay. Let's move on to our reader question. We take reader questions on Twitter, Facebook, on YouTube. This question actually came in via YouTube. And Wayne wants to know how to get free Wi-Fi in Times Square. He's staying in a hotel there. He doesn't want to pay the insane Wi-Fi rates at the hotel. Where can he get a free connection?
Well, in New York City, the number one, number two rules for free Wi-Fi, of course, are McDonald's and Starbucks. And there's plenty of those in the Times Square area. The Times Square Visitor Center between 46th and 47th on 7th also has free Wi-Fi, and it's radiating out the front. So you can probably get Wi-Fi throughout the Times Square plazas as well. And if you look in several of the hotel lobbies in Times Square, maybe not your hotel, but several of the Times Square hotels have free lobby internet access. So maybe you can't get it in your room. If you want it in your room, you know, set up your phone as a hotspot. But there's all sorts of places around the Times Square area that have free internet. On your phone, you might want to download, you know, the famous, venerable Jywire internet hotspot finder app. It's good. It has a good list of free Wi-Fi hotspots, and I've always found it helpful.
There you go. Let's move on to one cool thing now. Every year we test thousands of products here in our lab in New York City. Every day we take one thing off the shelf and show it to you live. Today that thing is the Adobe Ink and Slide, a much anticipated tablet accessory, iPad accessory. It's $200, but it's basically a great system for writers and authors to create art.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say authors, I would say artists. This is Adobe's first official pressure-sensitive pen for the iPad. iPad, not Android. It is made in conjunction with Adonit, who do a very nice pen called the Jot Touch. And what makes this special, actually, is this thing. And this is a ruler. And if you put the ruler on the screen, then you can only draw straight lines. So if you didn't go to straight line school, then you can draw perfectly.
So few of us have. And those of us that have gone have not graduated.
Right. Then you can draw perfectly straight lines using this ruler and the pen. Difficult to do with one hand, but you can see here. Now, the one downside of this thing is it is, in my experience, terribly expensive for one of these pens. It's $200. Most of the competing devices are $89 or $99. And basically what you're paying the extra money for is the Adobe brand name and the ruler.
Yeah, which is not insignificant. And the compatibility with Adobe software and the infrastructure and the brand. I mean, that's the deal. I think it's going to have a lot of appeal among graphic designers who are already spending a lot of money on their hardware. It's a great accessory.
Yeah, but I would say if you are, you know, if you're an artist with a slightly pinched budget, look at this, but also look at the Adonit Jot Touch, which costs half as much, similar technology. You don't get the ruler, but you know, not all artists can afford $200 for a capacitive pen for their iPad.
Indeed, that has been PCMag Live for today. Tune in tomorrow. We will bring you a brand new show. Thanks for joining us.